It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, December 3rd, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's talking Four Nations
I
rosters.
like it. At least someone's talking it.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here, as always, with prospect, expert, and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. You can keep the season going with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit fanduel.com to get started. And to keep up with our episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, including Blue Sky. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, Helge Grans was sent back down to the Phantoms, which is related to our Phantoms Tuesday content, which we will get to later in the show. They had a really fun week of games last week, so I'm excited to talk about those. But first, the Four Nations rosters are due to be revealed officially on Wednesday. Yesterday was the deadline for the hockey associations for USA, Canada, Finland, and Sweden to submit their rosters to the league. And the rosters are 23 players with 20 skaters, three goalies. They've already announced some of the players, like they did back in June, for the top players on each team, and they're doing it, I think, in a really cool way with the TV broadcast, because they're having a early in the day announcement for Finland and Sweden, so it aligns with their time zone, right?
It
And then
does.
later in the day, right before the TNT broadcasts for that evening's Wednesday night games, they're going to do Canada and USA. So I think that works out pretty well.
It does. And that's when I think people will start getting excited. I know I was tongue in cheek. Nobody's talking about the Four Nations because people are starting to talk about it, but it's mostly media. I don't see a lot of fan excitement about it. And that's really what I was getting at. But I think it'll get there. We hope the games are good, although there's going to be a time, Rachel, when people say, I don't know if I want my guys going because they might get hurt. But we haven't gotten there yet because they're not announced yet.
Yeah, I'm wondering too, like, if somebody gets hurt in between the announcements, and then like how substitutes are going to be handled.
Right.
Maybe they'll talk about that on the TV broadcast. I know the one earlier in the day is on NHL Network, so maybe they'll spend some more time there talking about
Yeah.
those sorts of details. And yesterday on the show, I talked about this tournament being my nemesis of the week, and it's because I wasn't sure whether I should care or not, right, about the
Right.
actual games. And I loved the World Cup of Hockey tournament,
Me too.
uh, those years ago, and I think this
Although I
lacked
like the
Team
young
North
Team
America.
North
Yeah,
America way too much, and everything was stacked against them. Everything.
right, and that's what
That's the
made that
part that
tournament
made
so
me
fun.
angry, but it made me angry in the end. It was fun, and I liked it, but it made me angry because I was just like, this team, we just never got to see what we needed to see. And they weren't
Right,
veterans, so they weren't getting calls from the refs. And it just seemed, and they were never going to see Team North America again, even if they do a World Cup, because they realized, oh yeah, they might embarrass the veterans. That's not good. Even though we all
right.
loved it, we were like, yeah, we want to see Austin Matthews and these young guys
Listen,
produce.
I paid money to go to Toronto and watch them play in person, and
Yeah,
it was spectacular. I own a jersey
they have a
from
great
that
logo.
team.
Yeah, I
Yeah. So, like, the fact that it doesn't include any, like, Team Europe was stupid. We can all agree on that.
yeah.
But, like, we can all also agree that Team North America was lightning in a bottle, so it's hard to kinda recreate that,
Hmm.
which is, again, why I struggle about this tournament. It's like, A, to your point, I don't want people getting hurt, but we felt that way about the All-Star game too, but the
But
All-Star game
nobody gets
isn't.
hurt in the All Star game. Like
Right.
nobody.
Right, and that's the thing, it's a different kind of hockey, so there are pros and cons
Or
to
it's
it. We'll
actual
see.
hockey.
Yeah. I mean, there's pros and cons to having this tournament is what I'm saying,
Yes.
in terms of doing it in lieu of an all-star game, and, that's why it's my nemesis because I don't know. I am of many thoughts on this
I
tournament,
know.
but
I listen, the minute it starts and the puck's passed around and there's some players for you to watch, you'll be in there hook, line, and sinker. You don't even have to.
maybe,
No, I
maybe.
know. Listen, I
We'll
know you
see.
well enough. You will be. Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of those players, trying to look at these rosters and who may or may not make it. Of course, we got a little bit of a potential, maybe confirmation, maybe not sneak peek from Flyers practice in terms of the Flyers that may have made those squads from their practice yesterday. And it appears that Travis Konechny, Travis Sanheim, and Rasmus Ristolainen have made their respective squads. Now, it's not 100% confirmed, but
Right. They could have been named as like finalists, and maybe that was enough to do this. Like we just don't know, right? We
right.
don't know. We don't know if they're on that final roster. That's the whole thing.
Right, and so when you're looking at that, I think, Team Canada is a good place to start,
Yeah.
because the Flyers have 2 guys there. Travis Konechny, I have no problem with him on this team. I think th in terms of the actual depth of the Canadian forwards, I think
Right.
it is interesting because Team Canada overall is deeper on the right than they are on the left, and so it depends on if there's somebody maybe above him in the rankings, so to speak, that they'll swing over to the left side who's more comfortable doing that to give him that spot, or if Konechny's kind of the alternate in this situation. But if you have Marner, McKinnon, Stone, and Reinhart out there, and even Duchesne as the option, like where does Konechny fit in on that side?
Well, I would say if this was a normal year, because it really started off poorly, I'd say Zach Hyman would be the guy you'd be
Right, but
worried
he's
about.
kind of on the outside looking in because he
He
hasn't
is.
had a
No,
good
he's not going to
year.
make it. He's not going to make it because he's having a
Right,
bad year. But that's what I'm saying. Even Duchesne, like I could see Konechny making it. I can. It makes sense. Sanheim, he's got a lot more competition. Like that one, if all
right.
of a sudden last minute there was like whatever you want to call it, a change or something, it wouldn't shock me. But I could see Konechny's got a better path, I think, than Sanheim does.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, like, maybe at the beginning of the season, I would have put Lafreniere in there,
Yeah, but he has
but
slowed down.
yeah, yeah, like, I just really think Konechny has the momentum right now that
He
a couple
does.
of these guys that I never would have thought he would have been ahead of at the beginning of the season, he absolutely has been outperforming them and deserves
Yeah,
the
there's no
spot,
doubt.
so
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
yeah, now Sandheim, it's also kind of a struggle. Is he the extra defenseman here, right? On
Right.
this roster? Because we've got Cale Makar, Noah Dobson, Dougie Hamilton, Alex Petrangelo, Drew Doughty, Shea Theodore, Josh Marcy, Devon Taves. Like these are all like outstanding defensemen, right?
They are. I mean, you could make the argument that if they're going to have Morrissey and McCarr going to be the main power play guys,
Mhm.
that maybe Sanheim would be there instead of Taves because that's
Right.
Taves' main, objective there. He's a good defenseman all around, but he's not as good as Sanheim right
Not
now.
Sandheim. Yeah.
So I think that would be to me his best chance of making it, and maybe that's why he made it because look, Sanheim's not a power play guy. They don't need a power play guy. They got 3 or 4 that could be on the power play.
Right.
So, as far as like a big strong guy who's good in his own end now and can skate, he does that. So I think that's where his role is, and maybe that's where he's going to make it.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and again, I think, based on performance this season, I think, Sanheim has conceptually earned the spot. It's
Yeah.
just there's this reputation element
And I
and
try to
this
take the
history
bias out of
element,
it because I am at
right?
all the home games. Like I'm seeing these guys more than other guys. I've seen quite a few of these guys come through though, to be fair, but still I'm watching, the Flyers guys a little more than the others this year. And so I have to sort of, balance that.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is that, like, some of these guys have the experience and the reputation that
Right.
earns spots over guys that you may think should deserve it based on performance this season, but that's not all there is.
No.
It's it's,
Team
historical
building.
familiarity, team building, it's particular skill set. It's combinations that may or may not work well together, and that's why I think really anything can happen with these teams. But also, there's going to be some specific guys that are going to make it no matter what,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, we know like in the top 6, like Marshawn was already in there. Does he truly deserve it based on this year compared to other years? I mean, you could
No,
argue it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now, looking at the other teams with Team Finland, Rasmus Ristolainen, I think this is great because I assumed he was pretty much a lock to make this team, right? And I think he'll be second or third pairing
Yeah.
on this team. I would say more likely second, but
Second, I
possibly
think.
third. Yeah, on this team, and he's been a lock, and the fact that he has performed so well this season only confirms that.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a real great comeback year for him. You know, he could be a guy who's up for comeback player of the year at some point. Like we just didn't know what we were going to see. We knew when he before he, had the injuries that he was playing good hockey and he's back to playing good hockey and maybe his best hockey is a Flyer. So, uh makes total sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, looking at Team USA, this team is so stacked.
Oh my
Like, I don't
gosh.
even know who's gonna make it, honestly, because there are so many possibilities here. I honestly think the decisions are much, much harder for Team USA than Team Canada,
I
just
think this
because.
year it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, like, the Flyers Americans are so far down the list that there's just no shot. Not to mention there's likely gonna be both Kachucks and 2 Hughes on that team. There's just
Right.
no room, right?
I mean, I look, could I keep Luke Hughes off? Yeah, I possibly could. Oh, no, actually, there would be 3 Hugheses if Luke made it. You're talking
If
about
Luke ma
Jack
Yeah, I'm saying
and
the other
Quinn.
2 are gonna make
Right.
it and not
Yeah, I
Luke.
would keep Luke off it because I don't think he's
Yeah,
quite earned it yet. So
right.
that's fair. But yeah, when you start looking at the team, I mean, they're
Like, Cole
really loaded.
Caulfield might not make the cut.
I think
Like,
he'll make it. He's second. He's the leading goal scorer for Americans and third in the league. So if he doesn't make it, there will be a cry. And I'll probably be one of those people because I'll be like, he's your best goal scorer. How do you leave him off? Are they going to choose
yeah.
Patrick Kane over him? Like, what are they going to do?
I don't know,
But I
but,
mean, you
I've
can't. That's my
seen many,
point.
many projected lists without him on it, so we'll
Yeah. Well,
see.
that's all well and good. I'm just saying my opinion is he'd be on it. Uh, again, Patrick Kane's played okay. I don't know if I'd have him on the list.
I
You
don't think
know,
I would.
Dylan Larkin, absolutely. Dylan Larkin's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
super stud. Might be top line center. So, but I could see, I could see Caulfield making it, and I I can't say I'll be shocked because if they're all of a sudden going to decide everybody needs to be big in this tournament and they're not going to take him, it's a mistake. That's all I'll say.
Alright, and just, like, with Team Sweden, um, Sam Ersson probably would've had a shot if he didn't get hurt, but he did, so that's kinda that with
Yeah, he's
Sweden,
not going to
but
make that team.
right, right, but yeah, should be interesting. We'll see what the final announcement is on Wednesday and talk about it on our Thursday show. In the meantime, it is Phantoms Tuesday, and they had a very good week, like I said, so we're gonna get to them coming up next. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this NHL season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds, turn those sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, on tomorrow's show, we will have our mailbag segment. So make sure to get those questions in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on any of our socials, or comment on our YouTube channel. The Lehigh Valley Phantoms won all 3 games this week, Russ, 2 of them in overtime, so they've
Nice.
been experiencing some of that similar to the Flyers,
Yep.
and that in their 3rd game against Laval, they won in regulation, but was also a comeback victory there. They were down 2 goals, so that means they went from 7th to 4th in the division. They had been up at 4th, went down to 7th, now
Yep.
they're back up in 4th. But interestingly, only 2 teams have a losing record in the division over the last 10 games. So a lot of the teams in the division are playing very,
Right.
very well. And so it's kind of hard to crawl your way up there when everybody is, except for a couple of teams, is winning. And they played 3 very good teams and managed to win against all of them. Now, I think, like, the interesting part of this is with Hershey having won that game in overtime 2-1, very close, matched game, very hard-fought game. I think the Phantoms have Hershey figured out, and it's just a matter of if Hershey shows up fully that game and if the Phantoms stay focused. They can beat them any game. That is my take on the matchup at this point. And I really, really think that is the case, that they know how to grind against Hershey. And that's why you have a low scoring game like this. And it's just a
Okay.
matter of if they can get a couple of goals in and hold them off that day.
I think there's some sense to that. I also think you should hold on to this clip just in case the end of the year the Capitals send down somebody who's really good and goes and plays
Listen,
for Hershey and upsets that apple cart. But for right now, I'm with you.
sure, sure. I get that. I get that. Now, Laval is another story. They've been very, very good all season, but now they've lost 3 games in a row. They're
Right.
having some problems for the moment. I actually had a quick exchange with Scott Batla, who used to host Locked On Canadiens,
Yep.
but he covers the Rocket, and he said they have just been collapsing a lot recently, and
Not
blowing
unlike the
multiple
NHL
goals
teams having
leads.
struggles too.
I
Like it's
know
similar thing.
Montreal's a mess.
Yeah, they're having
But,
struggles.
so I think there's something to that, but, the Phantoms they were down 2-0 after the first period, won the game 4-3, and so, I think they're playing some solid hockey. Now on the Phantom side, they got Anthony Richard back in the lineup.
That
That was
helps.
a huge, huge help for them, and, they had some problems on the blue line in terms of lack of availability, right? Because of course, Andre's gone, right,
Right.
for the duration. And then Helge Grans had been called up. Then they had some injuries, and Ethan Sampson was sick one day. And so, they had an injury mid-game with Xavier Bernard. And so he was out on Saturday. They only played with 5D for most of the game. So the fact that they've been able to kind of work their way through that, especially this weekend, was a really big deal.
That is a big deal. But they're more veteran on their blue line than they used to be. So I'm
Right.
not shocked that they're able to get away with that. Especially with
Yeah.
Gleason adding him. Like I'm not shocked at that at all.
Yeah, Gleason has been such a great addition to this blue line,
Yeah.
and he's been racking up the assists right and left. They used him in the overtime and was part of a game-winning play for one of the 2 games, and so he's just fitting right in, and I love to see that. And I think that, Belpedio is a nice stalwart there, right?
Yep.
Adam Ginning is playing a little bit better right now, and Ethan Sampson has stepped it up this season. And that's kind of a big part of why the blue line was able to weather that storm. Now getting Helge Grans back, I think that will only improve things
It will.
this week for the Phantom. So that's really good. The
Improve and
other,
complicate a little bit, but that's okay. It's a
well,
good problem to have.
yes. Yeah, honestly, like, you can scratch Bernard, and I got no beef with that.
Right.
Everybody else I want to play,
Right.
right? So, I think, there's a little bit of give here on the blue line in order to get him back in there. But the other big thing that happened this week is that Massimo Rizzo, who came back into the lineup last week, after being gone after the appendectomy surgery, they put him on the 4th line just to ease him back into it. they bumped him up to the top line with Ali Lycksell and Samu Tuomaala. And they at least started all 3 games together. There was, against, Laval, they did make some adjustments after going down 2 to nothing. They did
Yeah.
make some line changes a little bit, but all 3 games, they at least started together, and I think there's some real good potential with this line here, over the 3 games. Rizzo doesn't have any points yet, but, Lycksell, 2 goals and 2 assists, including the overtime winner on Friday. Tuomaala, 2 goals and 2 assists with the OT winner on Saturday, and I just really think that this line could go somewhere.
Yeah, I see the balance there, and as strong as Rizzo is now with the skill he has, then you've got 2 legitimate setup guys on that line. So, yeah, Tuomaala should be starting to pump in goals. It's good that he did it this game. He needs to do more of that, and so far so good.
Yeah, I think so. I mentioned Sam Sedley. He made his
Yeah,
AHL debut because of that Ethan Sampson illness, so that was good to see.
that's cool.
He's been playing really well with Reading, and so it was
Yeah.
good to give him
Nice
that
for someone from Reading to be
opportunity.
able to, feel that promotion for a moment or so. It does help a season. It does.
Yeah, and then on the forward side of things, Garrett Wilson, was hurt on during the game on Friday, or he's banged up a little bit, so he was out Saturday, there, and so, there's been a little bit of adjustments there, mid-game and between games, but there's, some solid combinations starting to form here that have looked really good, and I think that the fact that they're playing so well overall as a team, it comes and goes from time to time, but the fact that they were able to string together 3 straight wins, I think is really good.
No, that's good. One of the part of it comes and goes. It seems like more of Gendron is going. Like I saw that he didn't play one of the games. It's like
Right.
he was supposed to be one of their top guys this year. Uh 20, gonna be 21 at some point. He's got to step it up. If he again, there's only so many roles a guy like him can play if you go to if you get up there at the NHL level. And he's going to be 21 at the end of the month. So it's like he's got to start showing better.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, there's been a bunch of ebbs and flows this season with players like having little streaks of really solid play and then they seem to disappear. I think that does happen at the AHL level, but for some of these guys, they really do need to step it up
I mean, Elliot
quite a
Desnoyers is
bit.
no longer even a factor as talking about one of the better players
Well,
on the team.
well,
Overall, he might have
let's
spurts, but
let's put a pin in that and
sure.
we'll talk about him and some of the other guys coming up next.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get 150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. If Patrick Mahomes is healthy, I would take the Chiefs over the Chargers because they Chiefs can clinch this week. Clinch the playoffs already. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's fanduel.com.
All right, so getting right back into talking about Elliot Desnoyers, I agree with you, Russ, that he has not been anywhere near where he needs to be. However, I do think this weekend he played much better than
Okay,
he has been. And he finally got another goal on Saturday. It was the first goal in the game. So started things going to
that's
get
good.
them back in the game against Laval. It was a really good play as well. And that's like after they switched up the lines a little bit, so, I believe the assist was Tuomaala on that one. So it was a really good combination play. You could see the relief on Denoye's
Oh, I
face.
bet.
And I think that, he has been like steadily improving. Now, it hasn't shown up, in droves on the scoreboard yet. So, like, I'm not like overselling it here, but I
Right.
do think there has been some improvement. Another guy that has also found a place on this team, again, don't think he's NHL material, but Zayd Wisdom has been playing so well in his fourth line role, playing a really solid defensive game and not like too physical or getting scrappy or fighty.
Okay.
Really solid defensive play. And he's been a huge part of the penalty kill on the Phantoms and has been contributing to that. Like Lappy has even mentioned it without being asked. He's like, "Oh yeah, if it wasn't for Zayd Wisdom making these strong defensive plays, we wouldn't have gotten out of that situation." Like,
Well,
I
that
think
could be
that's
his
really
future
good.
role. Like he needs to find
Yeah,
something like that because he has physicality. There is some talent there. He's not been able to put it all together because of injuries, and that's sort of a role that could be good for him. Like I said, even moving into the future, whether he makes it with the NHL into the NHL or not.
right. And I would say especially so in the game against Hershey. Like there were
Yeah.
some very
Okay.
key penalty kills that had to happen in that game, and Zayd Wisdom was a huge, huge part of that. Speaking of special teams, the penalty kill was 7 for 9 for the
Okay.
weekend, which is pretty solid. The power play didn't technically score any goals, but there was
Okay.
one that was
If they
scored like
didn't
a
technically
second.
score and they either scored them or they didn't. The score sheet's
Well,
pretty good on that.
there was one goal that they scored 1.5 seconds after the power play expired, and it was because of the power play. But, it's still technically none. But, I think that's something that they definitely do
Yeah.
need
But their
to
power
step
play
it
is
up
okay.
on.
I mean, their power play has been
It's
really
okay.
good. Yeah. So I'm not gonna kill
Yeah.
them on that.
No. And then I think, like I said, Anthony Richard coming back was really good for the team. He had 2 assists on Wednesday. He got his first goal back on
That's good.
Saturday, and he had an amazing shot that hit the post before that goal on Saturday that I was just like, I was so relieved he got a goal later in the game because that
Yeah.
just felt like he deserved one there.
Yeah.
Rodrigo Abel scored on Saturday
It's
as
good.
well. I think that, there's some really good contributions from the AHLers there supporting the top prospects. And I think that there's some good elements here. Again, this is not a top prospect heavy AHL team. It just
No,
isn't.
it's a real mix now. But the thing is, some of these second and third year prospects of the Flyers, they need to, they have to have good years. So in that
Right.
regard, it's good. What they don't have are like the Bonks and the Luchenkos, guys like that. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and so I think that, like, when those guys come to the Phantoms, because
But they're going to
I
be
think
busy in the World Juniors first, Rachel, and then we got time.
I get that, but when some of those guys do end up, coming to the Phantoms at the tail end of the season, I think it's gonna be important to have, like, your Anthony Richards. Well,
Right.
we'll see if he's on the Flyers at that point, but, like, even Oscar Ekland, Rodrigo Abels,
I feel
like,
like if there was a team Latvia in the Four Nations, Abels would make it.
I d
I feel like he'd be their fourth line center. I do. He's just good at
that's
it.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he is. But, the Phantoms have another 3-game week this week. So Wednesday night, they're playing Rockford, which is another one of the new teams when they're trying to mix up the AHL schedule so that, you get to
Is that
see
at home
different
or is it
teams.
in Rockford?
It's at home.
Okay,
It's at
that's
home.
good.
So, excited to see Rockford. They're always a good time. And then Saturday night, December 7th, they are at home against Hershey again, and that is
And
the
you've
teddy bear
guaranteed a
toss
win, right?
game.
You're basically have
I
guaranteed a
have
win.
not guaranteed a win, Russ.
Didn't you just do that like 5 minutes ago? It seemed like you were
I
guaranteeing a
did
win for the
not.
rest of the year against Hershey.
I most certainly said nothing of the kind. I said that the Phantoms have Hershey figured out, but it depends on if Hershey kicks it into that extra gear and if the Phantoms hold their game together
All right.
the whole game. I
Now the
said they figured out the strategy. It's can they execute from game to game.
all right,
That
but
was my take.
the bigger question, it's still a good take. The bigger question is, will the Phantoms fans throw down more teddy bears than the Hershey Bears fans? Because they usually and they have a bigger arena, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
But they seem to set records with the bear
Hershey
toss.
does?
Hershey,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they do. They do. But the Phantoms teddy bear toss is still fun and it's always
They're
a
all
good
fun.
time.
I think it's great.
And it's always cool to see who gets the teddy bear toss goal
Yeah,
from
yeah.
year to year. So I'm excited to talk about that one next week. And then they are playing a second game against Hershey at Hershey on Sunday. So back to backs, home and away. against Hershey this weekend. This
Is
is
there a
their
FanDuel spot
prove
where we
it.
can talk about, the
I wish.
Phantoms and Hershey?
But this is, this is their chance to prove what
It
I've
is. This is big.
said.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I
they're either with you or they're gonna prove you wrong. We'll see.
I know, I know. So I'm excited to be horribly wrong and talk about it next week. We will do that next Tuesday. Just a reminder, once again, we have our mailbag on tomorrow's show. So let us know your Flyers or Phantoms questions. Happy to answer those on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on those same socials. SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert. Get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.